Missing Susan Osborne and son Evan Chartrand. It's been more than 5 years since a loving mother and son disappeared without a trace.
Susan Osborne and her son Evan Chartrand was filed back in August of 2017.
The 42-year-old Susan Osborne and 14-year-old Evan Chartrand were officially reported missing on July 2017. There are many clues, but only a few answers. Who are Susan Osborne and Evan Chartrand? What happened to them? And who is responsible? Susan Osborne had her oldest son, Evan Chartrand, on June 25, 2002. Originally from Michigan, Susan and Evan moved to Alabama when her first husband transferred to the state for a job opportunity. Unfortunately, Susan's marriage to Evan's father didn't last, and the two eventually separated. In 2007, Susan gave birth to a daughter by a different man, a daughter named Hannah Grace. The relationship between Susan and Hannah's father didn't survive, and the pair ended things. Later, Susan would flee another relationship due to concerns for her safety. She'd enlist her brother Brian's assistance to help her and the children escape. Since then, Hannah's father received custody of Hannah, while Evan remained with Susan full-time. It seemed to Susan like she would forever be unlucky in love. Susan felt that if she couldn't make a relationship work with the fathers of her children, then who else was there? Luckily for Susan, in 2013, she would meet her Prince Charming, or so she thought. Susan loved the outdoors, especially fishing, a hobby she shared with her son Evan. The two would often go out on fishing excursions. While Susan and Evan were on one of their fishing trips, she met Jerry Osborne. Jerry Osborne, a former Air Force veteran, worked as a 9/11 dispatcher when he and Susan met while fishing in 2013. Sadly, while serving in Iraq, Jerry had suffered a traumatic brain injury that led to a medical discharge from the military. To help Jerry treat his PTSD from the brain injury, his doctor had prescribed him medication. On the fishing trip, Susan and Jerry took a liking to each other and exchanged numbers by the end of the day. Not wanting to get ahead, but feeling excited, Susan felt as if Jerry could be her perfect match, her soulmate. Susan immediately called Holly, her best friend, and told her about the amazing man she had just met. Holly had to agree with Susan when she finally met Jerry. He seemed like a regular guy who would make a great husband for Susan and an excellent stepfather to Evan. Shortly after the meeting, the couple obtained a marriage license, and on January 25, 2014, Susan and Jerry married. Susan didn't tell any of her close friends or family members about the wedding, only informing them after she and Jerry had said their I do's. For the first few years, Susan seemed happy in her marriage to Jerry, but soon Susan's family and friends would begin to see Jerry's true personality. In January 2015, Susan's father fell ill, and Susan, Jerry, and Evan went to see them before he passed. Susan's brother remembered how Jerry never left his sister's side the entire time the couple visited. Initially, Brian, Susan's brother, thought this was Jerry being a supportive husband. Brian planned to go ice fishing with his nephew Evan after everyone had finished with the hospital visit. Evan was excited to spend time doing his favorite pastime with his uncle, but to everyone's shock, Susan and Jerry left for Alabama after leaving the hospital. Susan's family never got to say goodbye to her and Evan. Holly, Susan's best friend, became very concerned when in 2016, Susan emailed asking Holly not to text or call back about the email because Jerry monitored her phone conversations. Susan wanted to confide in Holly. She wanted to share something that Jerry could not know about. Susan had found out that Jerry had been having affairs with men. He worked as a gay male escort. Susan uncovered this information when she called the military base where Jerry worked as a dispatcher. She'd grown suspicious of his long hours and all the overtime shifts he was picking up. Sometimes he wouldn't come home for days. Jerry didn't need the extra shifts. As a former military member, the family wasn't in dire need of money. The person that answered the phone at the military base informed Susan that Jerry wasn't working that day. She began calling his cell phone, but all her calls and messages went unanswered. After digging through her husband's emails, Susan uncovered that he had been working overtime, just not at a military base. Jerry was a member of a website called Boys Scout and, using the alias Jay, would pick up men for sex and money. During her search, Susan uncovered numerous emails between Jay and men looking for sex. She even came across pictures of her husband in suggestive poses, wearing a thong. Whoever took the photo did so from the back, but Susan recognized Jerry's body and tattoos. It was evident from the emails that Jerry was a male escort, and this wasn't something new. He had been active on the website for years. In the email to Holly, Susan wrote that she had not approached Jerry about his secret life, but had stopped sleeping in the same bed as him at night. Jerry wasn't stupid. He knew his wife was up to something, and soon his suspicions grew. His reaction to Susan's distant behavior was to tighten his control over her. Susan could only speak on speakerphone, and Jerry would drive her everywhere, even though Susan could drive. In a series of emails to Holly over the next year, Susan highlighted her plan to leave Jerry. She couldn't divorce him immediately because she had to secure a house and insurance for her and the kids. But weeks before her disappearance in 2017, Susan suddenly changed her mind. She told Holly that she did love Jerry and that the couple would work on their relationship. Concern for Susan and Evan's whereabouts began when, in the summer of 2017, Susan's mother Linda had a difficult time contacting her daughter. Despite living in different states and Jerry's control over Susan, she and Linda had had a close relationship and maintained frequent communication. Linda presumed that maybe Susan was upset with her about something, but she had no idea what she could have done, and it wasn't like Susan to let all of Linda's calls go unanswered. 2 months later, on July 29, Linda and Holly reported Susan and Evan as missing. The police were alerted after a welfare check officer couldn't locate the two. 2 days after filing the missing persons report, police officers went to the home that Susan and Evan shared with Jerry. Officers noted Susan's car in the driveway as they pulled up on July 31, 2017. Jerry answered the door, and the investigators were overwhelmed by the smell of incense inside the home. It was cleaning day, Jerry said. He claimed he always burned incense on cleaning day. Cleaning supplies littered the living room floor, but there wasn't much else in the room except for a new couch, recliner, television, and video game system. The living room was bare and looked more like a bachelor pad than the home of a family of 3, one that included a teenage boy. It looked to officers like the hardwood floor under the carpet had recently been replaced too. Later, Jerry would claim that he ripped up the hardwood floors because it was cheaper than hiring a carpet installer. The company Jerry used to install the carpet allegedly told him that if he removed the old floor, he would get a discount. When the detectives visited the alleged carpeting store and asked about the deal, the store denied it had ever happened. When asked about the location of Susan and Evan, Jerry informed investigators that Susan had left him on Memorial Day weekend. She had taken Evan and all their belongings. Jerry had many surveillance cameras strategically installed throughout his home and property. He told the police that he'd seen footage of Susan and Evan enter a pickup truck with a tall man and drive off. Deputies asked to see the video footage, but unfortunately for them, Jerry had replaced the entire surveillance system at the beginning of June. Neighbors came forward to police and said that despite the temperatures being well into the 90s after Susan and Evan went missing, Jerry had burned several large items in fires in his yard. The fires caused so much smoke that the neighbors claimed they could not leave their homes for days afterwards. Soon, more disturbing information about Susan and Evan's disappearance became evident. Their 2 beloved pet terriers were dropped off at an animal shelter by Jerry's dad. A search of the Osborne family residence found several 5-gallon paint cans in the pantry. Detectives also noted that the living room walls looked like someone had haphazardly painted them recently. Early in the morning on Memorial Day weekend 2016, neighbors in houses surrounding Susan and Jerry's home reported hearing gunshots. Jerry had extensive training in firearms and forensics, after a career in the military. He could easily have killed and disposed of his wife and stepson without leaving any evidence behind. Eventually, Jerry stopped cooperating with the authorities and obtained legal counsel. A judge granted Jerry a divorce settlement from Susan in August 2017. In addition to avoiding the police, Jerry has refused to speak to any members of Susan's family about her and Evan's whereabouts. Regardless of all the circumstantial evidence in Susan and Evan's disappearance, their case is still unsolved. Detectives working on the investigation say Jerry Osborne is currently their only person of interest in the case. Jerry had tried to claim to detectives that Evan went to an oral surgeon appointment after he went missing. He produced a bill for Evan's surgery as proof. On further investigation, it was determined that what Jerry said was a bill was actually a no-show notice from the surgeon, not a statement for payment. Evan never went to his appointment that day. Since May 29, 2017, no one has seen or heard from Susan Osborne or Evan Chartrand.